It being after 4 p.m, pursuant to order, I shall report to the Senate.
The committee reports progress. Pursuant to order, the Senate will now move to valedictory statements, and I call Senator the Honourable Brett Mason.
Mr. President, colleagues, thank you very, very much. Sir, this is the last time I'll have the honour of addressing the Australian Senate. Well, of course, I am very sad to be leaving. Very sad to be leaving. The overwhelming sense I have is one of gratitude and one of thanks. Sincere thanks to have been given the greatest honour, the greatest privilege of my life, to sit with my colleagues in this place. In fact, I still come in here and look around. It's not that I'm not paying attention, Mr. President, but sometimes think I was perhaps kissed by a rainbow. There's nothing very special about me, but I was very lucky, and I'm sad to leave, but very thankful. I want to say just two things, if I can, Mr. President, in my final contribution in this place. That's thank you and goodbye. Can I start with a thank you? Thank you, of course, first to my family, my mother Beverly, brothers David and Richard and sister Catherine, and my eldest nephew Alexander. Thank you for your love and support. I'm not quite sure, frankly, whether you ever thought that going into politics was a good idea for me, but I keep thinking of my late father, who was, when I was a little boy, he was a newsagent, and there were three professions that he particularly disliked: lawyers, academics, and politicians. Fortunately, my dear mother was much more understanding, and to all my Canberra mates who I grew up with. Thank you so much for the pizza and the coffee and the red wine and the beer and the steaks at the Kingo. Thank you. Thanks too to my mate Jack Fisher. All of us who work here in this Parliament owe a lot to those that make our working life much easier. Senate Transport, of course, Peter and Ian. Thank God. No more 6:05 a.m. pickups from Brewster to the Senate. They're tired of them, and perhaps I am as well. Sound and Vision. Well, and Hansard. Now, where are they? I have a particular relationship, Mr. President, with Sound and Vision, as you know, and I love them, but my love has never been reciprocated. And I've got into a lot of trouble in recent times for being perhaps a little bit too voluble. And my defence has always been, Mr. President, well, that's how I used to lecture my students when I was lecturing. And that wicked Senator Ludwig would say, Brett, that is why no one ever came to your lectures, and that is why those that did are deaf. But I can now reveal some secrets, because I was reminded before this is my last time to speak under privilege. I remember you pulling me aside, Mr. President, when you were Deputy President, and saying, Brett, if you don't tone it down, we are going to slap across your face a sticker saying OH&S non-compliant. But thank you to Sound and Vision. I'll miss you, you won't miss me. The Senate attendants, who I love dearly, but I've been asking for 15 years for a gin and tonic to get me through question time, and I still haven't got one. And to Dr. Rosemary Lang, the clerk to the Senate, and her team. Can I thank you, Rosemary, so much, and your team. Now, Rosemary will never admit this, but I used to work with a Senate clerk a long, long time ago. She denies it, of course, and said the bloke just looked like you. Now, I'm still trying to find. I'm not quite sure whether Rosemary was my last supervisor at the Attorney General's Department many, many years ago. Because, Rosemary, my final supervisor's report read, it's very short, I recall. It said, Brett, John, Mason, not amenable to instruction. And Rosemary, if it was you, I don't hold it against you, all right? Because every Liberal leader since John Howard would agree with you, all right? And thank you, of course, to all those who helped me with my political career. First and foremost, of course, to the people of the great state of Queensland, and all the senators for Queensland who are here would be aware that we're often accused of being rough diamonds. That might be so, but just like them, if you cut and polish us the right way, isn't that right, Larissa? Cut and polish us the right way, we sparkle. To those who gave me a chance when few did, starting with the then Liberal Party President Bob Carroll, all the way through to the LNP President Bruce McIver, Vice President Gary Spence and the Director Brad Henderson, and all the team. From the very, very beginning, I've been very, very lucky to have the greatest possible support from the youth movement of our party. Both the Young Libs, of course, originally, and then the Young Liberal National Party. And of course also the student clubs, right from Matt Boland and Gerard Painter through to Rod Schneider, Ben Riley and Luke Barnes. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And for all my faults, I've had wonderful staff over the last 15 years. And all of us, I think, all of us who serve in this place know that without your staff, you are nothing. And I am so very, very grateful to all those I've worked with. I've got to say, I've had four people who have gone into politics who have worked in my office. Of course, they're all much better politicians than me, including the member for Moncrief, and now the Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs, who stole my portfolio, Mr. Showman. He was always a very cunning employee, Mr. President. And also, of course, Saxon Rice, who's on the front bench with Campbell Newman's government, Adrian Schwinn as Deputy Lord Mayor, and of course the member for Bonner, Ross Baster. And thanks to all those who ran my office, Robin, Patrick, Ted, Tim, Paul and John, and Alex. And thanks to those that still work with me, Phoebe, Mitch, Jack and Emma, and all those others who put up with me. But I just can't, colleagues, let this moment go by without thanking the poor guy who had to put up with me for about 13 and a half of the last 15 years. And many of my colleagues here know him, and it's Dr. Arthur Schrenkoff. Of course, I've always known, Leader, you're right here. All my colleagues respected Arthur much more than me. And every time people would come into the office, they were never after me, they were always after Arthur, Senator Cash. And Arthur's story is really Australia's achievement. He came to Australia from pre-Solidarity Poland as a 16-year-old. And he couldn't say a word of English, although he did tell me the other day that he could say hi. But within 2 years, he was the dux of his high school. And then he went to law school at the University of Queensland and was near the top of his class. Did a PhD, extremely intelligent. Everyone asks, well, why the hell, Brett? He was that smart that he ended up working with you. I ask myself that all the time, but I am so very grateful that he did. What he did for me, not only did he lift me out of the difficult times in politics, which all of us have, and all of us share that, difficult times, he gave great purpose to politics. He tried to give me poise, he never quite managed that. But he gave politics great purpose, and I can never thank him enough. I should also thank the Prime Minister for his grace and good humour over the last few weeks. I suspect he had other things to deal with, but he's been very, very good with me. And of course to the Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade for giving me the most enjoyable job of my life. When we were sworn in, just after the ministry was decided, I received a call from Julie Bishop. And Julie said, Brett, you've been offered the second best job in government. Now, I've been in politics a while and my cynical ears went up, as you do. But you know what? Julie was right. It was the most enjoyable job I have ever had, and to work with Julie, to represent our country, our beautiful country overseas, is a great honour. I must say, it all started rather well. I just got off the plane coming back from Canberra, Mr. President, and the phone rang, and it was the Foreign Minister. It was Julie. Brett, what are you doing on Thursday? I said, oh, Julie, I'm Thursday at lunchtime. So I'm very busy here in Brisbane. I'm extremely busy. I've got briefings to attend, and I've got no time for anything. No time for idle chatter. Oh. Well, I need someone to go to Sydney to have lunch with Angelina Jolie. Brad is stuck in LA and can't make it. I went, look, let me just check my diary. I think I can squeeze her in. And I remember thinking to myself as I got into the car, this is definitely going to be the portfolio for me. When I was a little boy, about 5 years old, I remember running across a car park, and I was being pursued, chased by 3 women. It hasn't happened in a while, but actually, there were 3 nuns in full habits. It was 1960s Australia, and they were bearing down on me like the Fleet Air Arm of the Ursuline nuns. And well, they caught me. They did catch me in the end, and I remember being carried back to my primary school. I remember thinking, oh dear, my brief life is over. I'll no doubt be buried in some lonely corner of the schoolyard and never heard from again. Or, worse still, the nuns will call my parents. And I remember sitting outside the office of the principal, of Other Superior, Sister B, while she phoned my poor mother. And Sister Gerard sat down next to me. She was my teacher, and said, Brett, good little boys do not stab nuns with pencils. Do not do that. And I'll never forget what she did next. She sat next to me and she said to me, whenever you feel angry or frustrated or scared, just remember you have a guardian angel sitting on your left shoulder. And I remember thinking, guardian angel on my left shoulder. I was very small, Mr. President, and I was very skinny, but I was also very cunning. So I said, I thought to myself, maybe I can train this guardian angel to wreak havoc on the nuns. But I was told that wasn't part of God's plan. But there have been a couple of times in my political career where I have looked across to my left shoulder and thought, mate, wake up. I need a bit of help here. And I remember very well in October, Mr. President, October 2003, the 12-month anniversary of the Bali bombing. I think many senators will remember that. I think it was held in the Great Hall with the commemorative service. And who should sit next to me but Senator John Faulkner, who was then the Leader of the Opposition, of course, in the Senate during the Howard government. He sat next to me and he said, I hear you're having some trouble, comrade. I went, yes, John. He said, look, I'll give you some advice. In this game and in life, he said, sometimes you need a bit of scar tissue. It looks to me like you don't have very much of it. But when you have that, you'll be a much better politician and a much better person. You're able to take disappointments rather better, and you won't get knocked out with the first punch. And I will never forget that. And I suspect from that time on, about a dozen years ago, politics has always looked up for me. And I thank John for that. For many years, I was Very lucky. I was to share a unit with Peter Costello and Richard Alston, many will remember. And then, of course, Senator Colbeck. And I remember Peter Costello telling me, he said, it's a sad truth, Brett, but there are many lonely people in Parliament, too many lonely people. Well, Mr. President, I can honestly say I've never found Parliament lonely. Never for a second. From the time I first entered this place, I have been sustained by marvellous Liberal colleagues, and I mean that, sustained. And I will miss all of them, every one of them, ably led, of course, by Senator Abetz. And of course, I think really the Liberal senators are quite a handsome bunch, perhaps led by the Queenslanders. The Senate is different, though, Mr. President. The Senate is different. It's a special place, and there's no elected chamber in this country that is so rich in its camaraderie. That makes us, all of us, different. I was very, very lucky to be elected to this chamber. Right in front of me, I have a note. For God's sake, don't forget the Nats. Because I wouldn't want Senator Cameron to remind me. Yeah? Well, how could I ever forget the Nats, given that I'm now half a Nat myself, as a member of the LNP? Of course, in recent times, Mr. President, there's been a concerted effort led by Senator O'Sullivan with Senator Canavan and Senator McKenzie and others who have tried to reinvent me as an inner urban Nat. Sadly, Barry, the makeover failed. I'm not sure, perhaps the French eau de cologne didn't go with the R.O. Williams boots. Or it might have been the patent leather shoes in the shearing sheds. Nonetheless, thanks for trying. It's a funny thing, but I have always got on with the National Party from when I first arrived. And for Senator Nash and Senator Scullion, Senator Williams, thank you so much. You've been wonderful colleagues, and I know you wanted me to be the Nat from Newstead. I'm remaining the Tory from Tenerife. I want to do something perhaps a bit unusual. Mr. President, I'd like to pay tribute also to the opposition and the crossbenchers. Never once in more than 15 years has there ever been a crossword from the Australian Labor Party, the Australian Greens or the crossbenchers to me outside this chamber. Ever. Not once in 15 and a half years. And I sort of think that your forbearance, Senator Wong, you and your team, is quite miraculous, really, given that I have been at times rather loud, volatile, sometimes extremely naughty, and we've been involved in some big debates, some very, very big debates. But I want to thank you, Senator Wong and Senator Milne, you and the Greens, for always treating me with the greatest courtesy outside this chamber. And to the crossbenchers, you know, many of you are new, and I've noticed in initially I noticed this great bafflement and bewilderment, but in recent times a greater savvy and a greater scepticism of politics and government. It's not always a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing. Mr. President, I'm very lucky to still be here. In 2010, I was elected, the sixth senator elected for Queensland, on the very final distribution of preferences. I was very, very lucky to be elected. It was very difficult because the minor parties, very naughtily, were cross-preferencing each other. And it looked rather grim. And when I saw Ron Boswell this morning, he turned up. Apparently he wants my casual vacancy. He said, what did he say this morning, Mr. President? The transition will be seamless. But Ron, in his, you know what he's like, in his typical fashion, he rang me up and he said, Brett, I've looked at the figures and you're buggered. You're stuffed, you're not going to win. I said, oh, thanks. He said, but look, tell you what, leave it with me. I'll try to get. I'll speak to Reverend Niall and the Christian Democrats, and I'll speak to some of the Christian groups, and I'll see what I can do for you. Just hold on. Well, Ron did that, and but Senator Joyce, as he then was, now the member for New England, helped, and a few others who can't be named stepped in to assist. And I did receive the preferences of the Christian Democrats, and I want to thank Reverend Niall for that a lot. Of course, I also, quite awkwardly, also received the preferences of the Australian Sex Party. God works in mysterious ways. I was never quite sure. But I should take this opportunity to thank Fiona Patton, who did seem to get the joke. But I think Ms Patton is now a member of the Legislative Council in Victoria. That's right. I remember waking up very tired and very emotional on the Sunday after the August 2010 election. It was a very close election, senators will recall. You know, it's like it was before 7 in the morning, and I had a big night. And on my telephone, there's 5 missed calls. So who do you think would be ringing me? 5 missed calls by 10 to 7 in the morning. Ron Boswell. Ron Boswell. And I phoned him back, and he's screaming, "Have you won? Have you won? Have you won?" And I said, "Well, apparently yes. The ABC website's predicting that the LNP will pick up three senators. Just." He said, "See, all my work with the Christian groups got you across the line." Sadly, I had to inform Ron that it was slightly more complicated than that. That the final distribution of preferences, and the reason why I was finally elected, was from the Australian Sex Party. So there was this awkward silence on the phone, Mr. President, very awkward silence. He said, "For God's sake, Brett, don't tell anyone." I said, "Well, it is on the ABC website, Ron." Ron was quite emotional and quite distressed. He said, "All right, well, there's only 2 things for it. You've got to do 2 things straight away." I said, "What's that?" He said, "First of all, ring up your mother and tell her that you've been re-elected as a senator for Queensland." I said, "OK, I'll do that straight away, Ron." He said, "Secondly, go straight to church, get down on your knees and beg for forgiveness." Mr. President, I've spent 15 years going to the gym every morning, even though it doesn't look like it. And on the way back to my office, I often look out across at the National Museum of Australia, which some senators may know was the site, of course, formerly of the Royal Canberra Hospital, where I was born. And I was reflecting on this the other day. I thought, God, imagine being more than over 50 years old and having come only a couple of 100 metres across the lake. I thought to myself, it's not much of a life. But in Parliament today, we are blessed by having senators from all around the world, from all the continents, who've made their way here. Some from Europe and North America, some from Asia, and some from just across the lake. But we're all here really for the same cause. It's to imagine or reimagine a better Australia. That is why we're here. And I want all my Senate colleagues to know that even though I will no longer be here, I will continue to dream that dream with you, always. Mr. President, it has been the greatest privilege, the greatest honour of my life to serve in this place. It really has been. It's an honour that will never be exceeded. But what has made it such a very great pleasure is the support, the camaraderie, the good humour of all my fellow senators. Mr. President, can I thank you so much, sir, and to all my colleagues, thank you and goodbye.
Beautifully done, mate. Well done. Well done. Well done, mate. That's right.
Order. The Senate will return to business, and I call the clerk.